The 7th century desert Arabs, they were like very violent people. Ibrahim, the Prophet, Sulaiman, Dawah, they didn't really exist. Now, what's the evidence for a claim like this? Not only are the stories of the prophets metaphorical, but just the whole concept of God is metaphorical as well. There is someone who calls himself a Muslim academic. This person is not popular, so there's no need to mention who he is. But he's out there, on social media, and this person, he portrays himself as an Islamic intellectual, as an Islamic scholar. Do you know what this person says? He says that how all of the stories in the Quran about the prophets, they're all fables. They're all myths, right? And his argument is that, these are not really real people. Like Musa didn't really exist. We don't have to believe that. These are just like examples that Allah gives. He tries to explain, he was like on a podcast and he tries to explain what he means. He says, well, you know what? The 7th century desert Arabs, they were like very violent people. So Allah needed to give them examples, role models to follow. And Allah gives them these, very, very beautiful stories about all of these miraculous things. But the point of those stories is really to improve their character, right? These stories never actually occurred. Like Musa, maybe he didn't even exist. Ibrahim, the Prophet, Sulaiman, Dawah, they didn't really exist. Now, what's the evidence for a claim like this, right? When Allah talks about the stories in the Quran, what does Allah Azza wa Jalla say? What does Allah say when talking about Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, Mary, and others? Allah, He says, إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْقَصَصُ الْحَقِّ. This is the true narrative. This is the correct, true story. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He calls Himself in the Quran, or He refers to Himself by saying, وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حَدِيثًا. Who is more truthful than Allah in speech? Allah Azza wa Jalla, He talks about these stories as if they happen. Why would anyone assume that they're metaphorical? Do you know why this guy is saying that they're metaphorical? Is because there are certain things that maybe he himself, things are in those stories that don't really sit well with him. So because he has a crisis of faith now, he comes up with a solution so that he can remain as a Muslim. And that is to say that these stories are just metaphorical. So I don't have any responsibility of explaining those stories. They're metaphorical, so it doesn't matter, right? You know what someone could also say? Someone could also make the claim that not only are the stories of the prophets metaphorical, but just the whole concept of God is metaphorical as well. Why? Because in the 7th century, in 7th century Arabia, these barbaric Arabs, the same way that he described them earlier, right? We can, flip it on him as well. We can say that these barbaric Arabs, they had no way of really fixing their character and being civil and being peaceful. So the only way that they could do that is for them to have a higher power. So this religion, Allah is really metaphorical. There's not really a God out there. It's really just metaphorical. What's common between both of these kinds of claims? That the stories of the prophets are all metaphorical and that the belief in Allah is metaphorical. What's common between these two claims? What's common is that they're both made up. They're both made up arguments. They have no proof, no evidence, right? No evidence. So a lot of people, that's what they'll do. To defend Islam, they'll say, oh, no, it doesn't say that. But then when they find out that it really does say that, they'll say, no, it's just metaphorical. They'll try to deny it. They'll try to twist it somehow. Look, if you're going to try to defend Islam, you do it with truth. You do it with the haqq. You do it with knowledge. You have to know what you're talking about before you speak. And this is why when it comes to da'wah, look, we all should be given da'wah, right? We all should be inviting people to Islam. But look, we all have our limits. And sometimes you might give an answer and the non-Muslim person is going to be like, oh wow, that makes a lot of sense. And that non-Muslim might accept Islam because you removed their doubt. But the way that you removed their doubt was that you did it in an incorrect way. You gave them a wrong answer. The non-Muslim trusts you because, you've been Muslim your whole life. You've taken some Islamic classes, but you gave the wrong answer. The non-Muslim doesn't know this right away, but the answer that you gave, at least it removes whatever doubts they have. They become a Muslim. But then what happens? That new Muslim starts to learn, starts to read. Then that new Muslim sees, oh wow, subhanallah, the person that told me that was totally false. They just made up that answer. Now the doubt comes back, and now they feel like they have a crisis of faith. Oh my God, I accepted Islam because I thought that it wasn't really like this. But that person was lying to me. That person didn't know what they were talking about. This stuff really is in the religion, right? So there are a lot of harms when it comes to you speaking about Islam and trying to defend Islam without knowledge. Now, I do get it. I get it. We want to defend Islam. But that's why we need to learn. That's why Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of dhikr. Ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. That's what we do. We learn from scholars. We learn from people of knowledge.